Hello everyone, Genesis Writer here. Some of you may know me as Garrett. Today I wanted to make a very brief video summarizing what has happened to me over the last 6 months, explain where I have been, what's been going on, and bring everyone up to speed. Now I know everyone doesn't have all the time in the world, so the first portion of this video will be very briefly summarizing up to this point what's happened and what's going on and what you need to know. And then I will go into a much more lengthier explanation of a variety of things. So the Cliff Notes version first. In the beginning of this year, I experienced a unknown, random upper left abdominal quadrant pain/bloating sensation with no distension that I extensively started trying to test and had no luck in terms of diagnosing. I was forced on mid-March to take medical leave from my job up in the New England area, and on April 1st of this year I flew back down to Texas to be with my immediate family because I was literally not making headway figuring out what my issue was, and it was only getting worse. Fast forward to now, this is July 1st of this year, and less than 2 weeks ago, I was successfully diagnosed with something called Nutcracker syndrome. It is fixable via a open surgery, and I'm going to have that less than a week from today on July 7th, 2023. The recovery time will be approximately 5 days in the hospital and 4 to 6 weeks after that of recovery time. I don't know exactly when I'll be back to gaming or streaming, or when exactly I will be back up to my job in New England. My hope by far is that I get to back to that stuff as quickly as possible. But my job, and more importantly, my health, come before my passion, which is gaming and streaming. So hopefully that brief summarization helps people understand where I'm coming from. The earliest possible date for my recovery would be August 10th, and then the more likely final date of recovery would be August 24th of this year. I have made no concrete plans as far as flying back or when exactly I'm going to begin or resume streaming or gaming again, which I'm really wanting to get back to, but I can't tell exact reasoning and exact timing on that because I don't know. I have to make sure I take care of myself first, recover from this, and that's the brief Cliff Notes summarized version of what I've been experiencing over the past 6 months. I would strongly recommend sticking around past this point, but for those of you with short attention spans or short time, I completely understand. That's all you need to know. However, I would strongly recommend sticking around for the full and more lengthy explanation because it is far more in depth than what I just said or covered. And I hope to bring the gravity of my situation to other people while helping people understand exactly how hard this has been and exactly what my plans are for the future. Rewinding a little bit earlier than my brief summary just went over, back to last year, 2022, I injured or strained a muscle on the left side of my lower back while lifting something at my home residence up in New England. I experienced a pain, basically debilitating pain from it, and had multiple CAT scans and x-rays to verify, make sure that my bones were not broken or somehow fractured in some way because the pain was so bad. I ended up being able to take 6 weeks off from work via a pretty extraordinary circumstance that was being offered during that time that I won't get into. But basically, bottom line is, Massachusetts compensation for not being at work is very lenient, and it coincided with a lack of materials to finish some jobs and programs, and so they were offering people temporary leave. And so I took advantage of that because it absolutely 100% made sense to. I had been offered it 5 to 6 times before actually saying yes to it. And when I said yes to it, I was in such pain that I actually went to the ER later for imaging after going to urgent care. So I got all that figured out, and thankfully there was nothing broken and they couldn't find anything that was wrong. So basically what that means is you can recover with physical therapy, which I went to physical therapy and took that very, very seriously. I ended up going about, say, 5 times. They were very eye-opening sessions that really pushed kind of what I thought was in terms of a physical recovery. And people say, oh, 4 or 5 sessions, that's not very long. It gave me all the material that I needed to know to perform it on my own at home. And that's what I ended up doing rigorously every single day. There were multiple benefits that I came away from this, where taking my physical health more seriously, realizing that that's more of a priority, and that I could do reasonable things to improve my health. I've always been underweight, always been under BMI. Currently I weigh 134 and I'm almost exactly 6 foot. I'm underweight, just mildly. So taking that kind of into my own hands, dealing with that pretty stressful time pretty darn well, in my opinion, of having this, an unknown back injury and dealing with all that, I think I came out of that relatively unscathed until I started having trouble with my sleep. There are a variety of issues and reasons behind this. Because this video is going to ultimately be public, there are so many of these reasons that I can't exactly get into. Basically, I will summarize by saying that there are stress factors in my life that, when particularly targeted by various events that happen or occur to me, my sleep can deteriorate if I do not keep it in check. I've been through cognitive behavioral therapy for sleep. I have different medications that I can take for sleep as an option, those of which, of course, I won't get into, and I've had different counseling and things related to this that have been extraordinarily helpful. The cognitive behavioral therapy is an online actually class that you go through. Holy cow. It doesn't sound as serious or as psychological as cognitive behavioral therapy sounds. It's so useful. And I've done that before. Actually, I dealt with that in 2019. So I've dealt with sleep issues before. But this was on a whole different level. It was awful. I would wake up at 2:30 in the morning, 3 a.m., and not be able to go back to sleep. And what was the worst about it is simply the fact that I was doing everything in my power physically that I knew to be able to give myself the best possible chance to have a good night's sleep, including the physical therapy and doing extra walks at work and on breaks and then around parks and things to make sure I was burning my energy levels off. It was not good, and it really started tanking my mental health and just my overall well-being. How good my sleep is strongly correlates and links to my mental health. And I don't throw the word mental health around lightly. I mean it as seriously as I can possibly mean it. So by the end of that year, by the time Christmas break is coming around in 2022, I am kind of at my wit's end when it comes to my sleep and my overall mental well-being. I ended up going back home early, back home to Texas, to be with family, and ended up staying a little bit later due to the Southwest Airlines complete debacle. During that time, I figured some things out about my sleep that helped me articulate and identify some things that were going on that put my sleep in a place where it was acceptable, reasonably. Wasn't ideal, wasn't good, but I could get by on it. That's the best way I can explain it without getting into personal details. So I come back from the Christmas 2022 vacation back down in Texas. I fly back to the New England area and resume work. On the last week of the Christmas vacation, I start to have this odd sensation in my upper left abdominal quadrant. This is just below my left rib. It is very non-specific in its origin and placing. It's just in that area. I can't point my specific finger to an exact placing. It's just in that area. I know it's beneath the skin and it's not near the surface, somewhere in there. It's a bloating sensation with no physical distension, meaning my stomach is not physically bloated that I can tell at all. And this mainly is occurring after I'm eating. It's mainly occurring after, later on in the day. It's getting a little worse, and it's, okay. And I'm not thinking too much of this. I'm thinking, okay, maybe I just ate some stuff at Christmas. There was a point in time where we thought that there was a meal we'd eaten at Christmas that had given some people food poisoning, but other people had not gotten anything at all. I came back to New England and my symptoms just started to get worse. This bloating sensation continues. It gets worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse. About a week and a half to 2 weeks in, pain starts to accompany this sensation. Now, I'm not talking about a debilitating, cut your arm off, sharp pain. That's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about a dull, throbbing ache. It's not a muscle ache. I can definitively tell you that this is not like the back injury I had last year. The way that felt versus the way this felt, very separate and distinct. And that's, partly the reason I knew something was very seriously wrong. So the pain just starts to increase. And basically what this entails is I'll wake up in the morning, and for the first about 5 to 15 minutes, I couldn't even tell that anything was wrong, right? And this is how many, many mornings would go for weeks on out from here. But progressively as the day went on, especially after I would eat breakfast and beyond that, my this bloating sensation would begin to increase, and the pain in my stomach / upper left abdominal quadrant area would get worse and worse and worse and worse. And it would come and go depending on how full my stomach was, but it would never go away. Normally, this would mean that the pain out of a 1 to 10 scale, 1 being the lowest pain possible and 10 being you're dying and almost losing consciousness, I would say that at first it was getting up to like a 3 or 4 by the end of the day, at the end of the afternoon. And by a couple weeks in, maybe a month or so in, it was getting up to a 5 or 6 by the afternoon. This quickly became completely unreasonable and non-sustainable. I began doing, and pretty early on, began mentioning this to my primary care physician. He referred me eventually to a gastroenterologist, who I then had a colonoscopy and endoscopy done, as well as a variety of other testing. They did not find anything conclusive that would have definitively helped me to determine what was going on. One of the main findings we had early on, and it seems almost or feels like this is a red herring, which we did not know at the time, was something called SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This was discovered via a hydrogen breath test that I took at home and sent in for the results. Came back positive for hydrogen-based SIBO. Thought, okay, I was given a phone call by this gastroenterology unit, and they told me, basically on no, short terms, they said, hey, we're going to give you this antibiotic, and most people could recover from this. It's going to be fine. And I actually remember pulling over in the car when I took the call, and I actually remember weeping, because I genuinely believed that this was it, that I was going to get an antibiotic, that I was going to be cured. And at that point in time, I was seriously considering going back to Texas and going on medical leave. And I had already submitted a claim to start medical leave, ended up canceling that claim because of how confident that this phone call made me that this 2 weeks of antibiotics were going to work and were going to help me. Bottom line, it didn't. In fact, I will have to say that my interaction with this specific GI place, which will go unnamed, was some of my poorest experiences that I ever had in the medical realm, period. There's a lot I could say on this, and just medical professionals in the New England area, which will go unsaid because it's ultimately unhelpful and very negative. Suffice to say that it didn't help me, and 2 weeks later I was in the same place, if not worse. I had many long, hard conversations with family and friends, and basically I eventually ended up determining that, I mean, I can't work with this. At my job, I work on circuit cards for missiles at Raytheon Technologies, the third largest defense contractor in the United States. It's the best job I've ever had so far, and I'm very, very thankful to them for having that job. And I would like to do everything in my power to resume and continue remaining at that job. I work on finely articulate things, often with a microscope or bending over to solder or do things of that nature that require you to essentially hold your body or upper frame or muscles in certain positions for potentially extended periods of time. Now, ergonomics is a pretty big deal at Raytheon, thank goodness, but even with that being said, it was becoming completely unreasonable on a physical and pain scale for me to continue working. I don't know how else to say it. I've been told I have a high pain tolerance. Those are not my words, those are other people's. It was beyond my pain tolerance for working. I was not able to perform my job at the necessary means, the detailedness that you need to go into class 3 grade soldering and inspection for freaking missiles was not being met by my current limitations. So I had to make one of the tougher decisions I ever had to make in my life, and that is to go on medical leave from work midway through March of this year. That was really tough. And I am being monetarily compensated for that, which again, not going to get into, but I am unbelievably thankful for Raytheon and just the ability that I had to be able to continue my benefits and things up to this point. And none of this would be possible without that and the insurance I have through them. So just as a side note, I'm very aware of the privileged position that I'm in. Back to my struggle, going back down, I decided to go back down to Texas on April 1st. It was a very challenging and hard time, going back home after all of this and not having any idea what's going on with me and what's going wrong and how long I'm going to be down here, and still paying for a place up in Massachusetts that I'm essentially renting, and no idea when I'm going to be able to go back to work is very, very unnerving and hard, to say the absolute least. But I wasn't getting anywhere, and I live an hour away from Houston, the 5th largest city in the United States, and has some of the best medical professionals in the world. So that was encouraging, and that's the reason why I chose to come down here, and it was absolutely the right decision. But it certainly did not feel that way to start out. I'm not going to go through and list the number of medical tests that I have or the number of medical professionals that I have, because it's exhausting, and while it would sound good being said right now in the video, I just don't care to. It was an ungodly amount of tests and blood work, urinalysis, etc., and seeing an unbelievable amount of health professionals. I was seeing 3 GI doctors at one time, and basically what it came down to 6 months later, from beginning to experience this issue till now, July 1st, is that as best we can tell, this is not a GI issue. This is not a muscular issue. This is not a bone-related issue. This is a vascular issue. Relatively early on, after coming back down to Texas on April 1st, we had a CT scan done at a Houston Methodist hospital, and after some encouragement and prodding of the radiologist, they discovered something that was a anomaly, a narrowing of my left renal vein. And they mentioned specifically median arcuate ligament syndrome, MALS, SMAS, and also nutcracker syndrome, often commonly referred to by the acronym NCS, which you may hear me refer to later in this video. This was an anomaly finding, and they encouraged more testing in this realm, but these things that they mentioned that I could potentially have were extremely rare, and I didn't have much hope for them actually being that. So I was pursuing, you have to understand, multiple avenues at the same time to try to narrow down what in the world was going on with me. And so at the same time, I'm taking antibiotics for SIBO, because we still think that's a thing. Ended up taking 2.5 rounds of antibiotics for that, and it not helping at all by the end of it all. And there's a lot of filler, a lot of things that I could go over in this time frame, right? But tracing back through the main points and areas that actually led us to a diagnosis, we then notice an ultrasound that also mentions that I have this narrowing of the left renal vein, after again encouraging them to make sure they actually include that, looking at that left renal vein. Left renal vein comes off of the left kidney, for those of you who don't know. And then we have a vascular surgeon, eventually the second vascular surgeon we had look at this after the first one told us it was nothing. That's a great story. Another negative avenue that I won't be going down. The second vascular surgeon we got a second opinion from said that there was narrowing of my left renal vein and that I could possibly have something called nutcracker syndrome, which is narrowing of the left renal vein. And so he directed us to his person that he went to in Houston. And this is another vascular surgeon who had studied at Mayo Clinic for over 15 years. And this guy did two specific tests, a CT venogram and a renal Doppler ultrasound, that 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt show that I have narrowing of my left renal vein. To be more specific, it is a 1 to 5 grade compression. Now, what is a narrowing of the left renal vein? You have the mesenteric and aortic arteries, which are lodged somewhere behind, or near your rib cage, okay? And they flow down, but they create this sort of V sort of shape, and your left renal vein flows between those two. And in very skinny people, most particularly actually young women, believe it or not, these two mesenteric and aortic arteries can become pinching off the left renal vein, often not completely, but enough to where it causes an obstruction in flow, and often is debilitatingly painful. However, there's a wide variety of symptoms that this produces that are very inconclusive, hard to diagnose, and ultimately seem to present as another issue, such as, you guessed it, a GI-related issue. It's not a GI-related issue. It's a vascular issue. But there's a wide variety of symptoms, such as having blood in your urine, hematuria, or having a more prominent left gonadial vein, or there's multiple different things that you can present on this spectrum of symptoms, and some are more common than others. Well, what do you know? I present with the symptoms that are probably the least common. And I'm male, I'm not female, so it's even less likely that I'm going to have this. This is partly what led the first vascular surgeon that looked at some of my scans to go, no, you can't have this, right? But this vascular surgeon studied under the person who created the surgery to fix nutcracker syndrome at Mayo Clinic. If you don't know anything about Mayo Clinic, they are the top premier, world-renowned, top-of-the-line people. They only saw, in the 15 years he was there, they only saw 70 cases of nutcracker syndrome, or just below that. That gives you an idea of the rarity. To present hematuria as a male without hematuria, you can imagine the levels of 0.00001% yada 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 that this is in terms of rarity. And I definitely have this. Now, I want to state very, very clearly right now two things. Number one, I will be getting a surgery to fix this on July 7th. And number two, to the best of our knowledge, this is by far what I have. To the best of my ability, to the best of the medical narrowing down that we can possibly ascertain or determine, this is what I have. And it is what's causing my symptoms and or pain. But there is a very slight possibility and chance that it's not what I have. As with all things like this that are rare and speculative and whatnot, we have done the best job we can to verify that surgery is necessary. And I trust this doctor completely, especially due to his experience, and especially because his wife, a radiologist who has also studied at Mayo Clinic, read the actual freaking results of my scans, and they know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is that this is a thing that I have. So on July 7th, I will be having a open surgery, which will have not too large of an incision that will then move my left renal vein down, so it's not going to be as easy to compress between the mesenteric and aortic arteries. It's going to move it down. It is going to patch it into place, widening it with another vein. They're going to take another vein from my body, patch the left renal vein open more so that its blood flow is not obstructed at all. And then they're going to use a special stent designed for veins that was only created in the past 5 years, cutting edge technology, to then put that into the left renal vein in that opening that's already been patched open more, and they are going to stitch that into the vein so it is impossible to move. For those of you who don't know, stents are mainly made for arteries, and up to the past 5 years, that's what they've been made for. So this is very cutting edge stuff, and the fact that they're stitching it in, the bottom line is this doctor has seen multiple iterations of this surgery. This is the highest likelihood chance surgery we have for guaranteeing that these symptoms do not come back or rehappen again. And he studied under the doctor who created this and has seen all the variations and iterations. I have full confidence in this. I think this is what I have, and I think this is going to fix me as far as I know. So as far as I'm aware, that's what is going to happen. The recovery time is going to be around 5 days in the hospital, with approximately 4 to 6 weeks of recovery time after that. This means that by August 10th is the earliest possible day that I will be fully recovered from this. August 24th is the more likely final day that I will be recovering from this. And I'm, again, you see me glancing off to the side, that is because I'm literally reading off from my list of notes here, and I will be referring to that more at the end of this video to make sure I cover all of the details and bases. During this entire time, someone asked if I've been gaming or playing Halo. I have not had my console or gaming computer down here in Texas with me, so I have been doing zero Halo or console related gaming besides a little bit of Switch gaming here or there. So hopefully that answers that question. As far as my own mental going into this, I've never had a surgery before. So in that way, I'm optimistic, and probably maybe a little more so than the average person would be, because I don't have a lot of fear around the surgery. I mean, this is definitely what I need, and the recovery time is not going to be that long. And thank God it's being covered by my insurance. And I hope I can get back to work as soon as possible after then. And that's kind of where I'm sitting. Up to this point, my mental has been, before diagnosis, which is excruciating and long. I mean, you have to realize it's almost 6 months of sitting here not knowing what I had, not even thinking I would maybe even be able to go back to work. My mentality has been shot to oblivion. I have been only held together by family, friends, and people who have stuck with me during this time. And if you were one of those people who I haven't reached out to, or you feel that I have ghosted or just haven't communicated well with you, you're right. Because it is very, very difficult when you're in excruciating amount of pain on a daily basis and have no earthly idea what the heck is going on, to reach out to everyone and have chummy conversations with everyone about how their life is going and how their life is obviously going better than yours. And you get it. You get kind of where I am there. I'm sorry if this comes across as pretty negative, but I hope it is widely understood why I have not reached out to, been as active with, talked with, or gave absolute up-to-date, blow-by-blow updates on what has been happening up to this point, because I didn't have a freaking diagnosis or a treatment plan for what was going on or what was happening, and my symptoms were not improving. It's kind of hard to give an update when you don't know what the heck is going on. I'll just leave that at that. So that was how I was doing mentally. I'm doing a little bit better mentally now, but I just want the surgery to be over, and I want to be recovered, and then I can gauge where I am, and I'm hoping to do a lot better from then on out. I'm currently at my parents' house in Texas, and so for those of you who want to know what this picture is, that's actually a picture my mom drew in art college. She has actually a degree in teaching art, and that's one of her projects, hubcaps from cars and color gradient differential. So how do I feel about the operation? I feel very, very confident. I mean, I'm looking forward to having it over with, and I have every confidence in what I'm about to go through. What else have I been up to during this time? I have watched a lot of YouTube. I've read several books about sleep. I have, just done different things, going to church every Sunday, occasionally gaming on my Switch every now and then, trying, and to be completely honest, the vast majority of my time has been trying to juggle, keeping medical leave going and making sure I meet all my appointments and deadlines and making a ungodly amount of phone calls to an unbelievable amount of people, trying to see if there's cancellations for appointments to move them up. I guarantee you I wouldn't have a diagnosis by now if I hadn't been doing that daily. So that has been where the majority of my time has been spent. So hopefully that makes sense. Going through any other questions here. What caused Nutcracker syndrome? Was I born with it? No, I was not born with it. We don't even know what actually causes it. And in fact, looking up statistics for Nutcracker syndrome is difficult because a lot of people are theorized to have it when it's, again, like it's literally said as the diagnosis of exclusion. It literally is labeled as that, as a syndrome. If that doesn't tell you how hard it is to diagnose, I don't know what is, because people just don't recognize it initially. Like, you have to really push for what is that narrowing of the left renal vein, and then get an expert, a world-renowned expert practically is what it feels like, to actually diagnose you successfully with this. So no, I didn't do anything that caused it. I mean, I'm skinny, have a very narrow frame, that does fit the criteria for this, but I was years, 5, 6, 7 years of being, 132 pounds, 6 feet tall. I didn't have any major diet changes or a crazy amount of weight loss. I did lose some weight after coming off the back injury last year and having sleep issues, but it was like 7, 8 pounds. It wasn't an amount that I felt vastly uncomfortable with, and it was certainly a weight I had experienced previous to this and had not experienced any issues of Nutcracker syndrome. So I can't answer that question of what caused NCS or were you born with it, because I genuinely just don't know, and no, I wasn't born with it. So hopefully that answers that question. One of the main things I do with my time and my spare time and I'm very passionate about is gaming and streaming, if that hasn't already been apparent in the video, streaming my gameplay live to other people. So many of these questions that I'm about to answer are going to be related to that. So hopefully you guys understand. Have you played any Halo since any of the updates? No, I haven't touched season 3 or 4 of Halo Infinite because I physically haven't been able to. And I've been on an iMac right here at home, so that doesn't have access to Halo Infinite. And to be completely honest with you guys, I could not physically game with the controller or stream in those last few weeks leading up to April 1st because it hurt so badly to sit in a particular position. Literally just to rest my back against the chair was putting pressure on what I now know to be the mesenteric and aortic arteries and pinching my left renal vein. So yes, while I'm sitting in a chair trying to do something fun and relaxing, gaming, I couldn't physically do it because you have to sit in a certain position for an X amount of time. So no, I haven't been gaming or streaming for quite some time now, even before I came back down to Texas. And hopefully that explains why, or at least it explains why to me. Some of the last things I'll go over here. Do you think your schedule for streaming will be similar when you return? When will you return to streaming, and what will you be streaming? Number one, I can confidently say that my health and my mental health and my physical well-being come at a very, very high priority after I eventually get back to the New England area after August 24th, or somewhere around then or after then, I would assume, right? So I am going to do everything in my power to, number one, eat correctly and gain weight, because increasing those fat pads between the mesenteric and aortic arteries is actually a way to potentially cure what I have going on. Now, I'm not going to wait around for that to happen, and I'm going to obviously have this surgery which will completely fix this issue, or at least I'm hoping it will, but I'm not going to leave it up to chance that this could happen again. This was debilitating, put a sickening, grinding halt to the entirety of my life and my passions, and I intend for it to never happen again. And so I'll be taking every avenue I can physically to do that. And that means eating over 2,000 calories a day, calorie counting, etc., which I've already been doing. So that is going to be a top priority and will take precedence over any sort of gaming or streaming when I get back. And it may take me a while to fully figure that out or what I want to do with that. And so that is going to supersede any sort of gaming or streaming. Another thing that I want to mention here is that somewhere within this August timeframe and somewhere into next year, I will need to move my living residence. That is not a easy thing for me to do, and it often impacts my sleep. It is one of those stress factors that impacts my sleep. So I need to do it carefully and with reaching out to the right people for help and doing it very methodically. It's a slow, grinding, agonizing process, and moving is no fun, but it's especially no fun for me for a wide variety of reasons that I won't get into here. Basically, I want to get into a place where I'm on my own, where I don't have to depend or rely on other people, and in a place where I can really dedicate myself to my work and my passions, and that's what I'm hoping, and obviously my health, which is very, very, very important. Another thing that I'll say is that my mental health comes very, very much as a priority over a lot of these other things. So if I am getting back into Halo, and obviously that's going to be fun to, go over that season 3 and 4 content that I missed, but if I ever get to a point where I'm feeling stale, or if I'm feeling like I'm not enjoying the game or going through the motions on autopilot, I'm going to play something else. And this is something that I've really had a lot of time to think about. And it's not a diss to anyone who plays Halo, or especially the Halo group that I have and have founded, Formal Focus. It's just a decision that I have to make for myself. I've played Breath of the Wild a little bit on the Switch, and I really want to play some other games at some points here and there. And so that should come to no surprise for those of you who have been intimately involved with the Halo Infinite scene and how 343 has handled it. While they have been better recently, having 6 maps in BTB up to like 2 years after its launch or whatever is just, it's not enough content. 1 map added, 1 gun added to the game, 2 equipment added to the game by now. Come on. Pitiful. Okay? Like, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good that's come out of Forge and a wide variety of other things. Halo Infinite has a much brighter future now than it did, but it's basically MCC all over again, waiting for them 5 years later to actually fix the game after the population is dead. The population doesn't impact whether I'm going to play the game or not, and there certainly is a lot more reason to play the game now that they have a career rank, but I am not going to bend over backwards to play a game that I'm not actually having fun playing, if that happens to transpire to be the case. Halo is a game I'm very passionate about, and I would be playing a crap ton of it, but just know that that's kind of where my headset, or my mindset is. I said headset there. I'm truly a gamer. So as far as wrapping up this video, I'm going to briefly go over here a few things that I just wanted to make sure that people are aware of. This other thing that I want to make people aware of is that my left thumb has been professionally diagnosed by an orthopedic surgeon with something called, and I'm going to mispronounce this, de Quervain tenosynovitis. Basically, it is my left thumb, the ligaments and tendons in my left thumb as they go through a sheath. I've had this for 4 years now, didn't realize exactly what it was due to a repetitive stress injury at a job I had previously, and I've worn compression gloves on my left hand ever since to compensate for it. If I had caught this in the first 6 months of having it, then a steroid injection and some physical therapy would have just taken care of this, and I would have recovered very easily. But because this is 4 years later, I've already had the steroid shot. I've been in a splint for several weeks now, and I've been taking anti-inflammatory medications and doing physical therapy every day, and can't really notice a difference. It is very likely that I may need to have a mild outpatient surgery, which is to fix this, which is very successful, extremely low risk, but again, this is a 4 to 6 week recovery time. I don't know if I'm going to do that before I get back to gaming or streaming, but again, when I say I'm taking my health as the top priority and it comes to my physical health, this is a possible permutation when I get back around the late August, early September timeframe, assuming the surgery goes well and fixes everything. This is something that I very well may be pursuing, especially if I get back to gaming. This starts to hurt, it starts to become worse and worse, and I'm not going to deal with that. I'm going to go and I'm going to take care of this, and that means I can't game while doing that. So that is what it is, and just please be aware that that is a permutation that could be possible. I also want to make people aware that my left foot has also been professionally diagnosed by an orthopedic surgeon with this. Let me actually go and see here so that I'm not misquoting this. This has been professionally diagnosed with plantar fasciitis. Now, when most people think of plantar fasciitis, they think, oh, this mild thing that will go away. Yeah, if you catch it in the first year. Try 5 years later. Yes, same job, same repetitive stress injury. This is before I worked at Radial, the previous job. Same thing that caused my left hand issue. Basically, I've been wearing custom insoles, very comfortable shoes, and, I've been taking I took a round of oral steroids, have worn a splint at night for several weeks now, and guess what? Surprise, surprise, it's not better. And guess what? Surprise, surprise, I may need some kind of surgery to potentially fix this or improve this in some way. So again, this is a permutation that doesn't affect gaming, but it may affect moving, and it's something that I'm making people aware of just so that you have a general idea of what is going on. I can walk for about 20 minutes or so, and then boom, I suddenly start having foot pain, and I'm just not going to deal with that. I'm going to actively take steps to make sure that that is fixed and rectified as much as possible. And so I'm hoping that all of those various things, including mental health, sleep, left foot, left hand, nutcracker syndrome, you can see, and the back injury last year, you can see kind of a plethora of issues that I've been dealing with up to this point, and hopefully that adds more credence and understanding to what I mean when I say that I'm going to be taking my own physical health and mental health a lot more seriously, getting back and prioritizing it completely over gaming or streaming, something that I'm very passionate about and want to get back to as soon as humanly possible. I may have to just take some time here to figure out things when I get back. Coming off of medical leave and going back to your job is not an easy process. I do not look forward to that because it's a long and draining process from what I understand. And I hope that answering these questions and making this video helps people understand where I'm coming from, what I will have to be doing. I don't, beyond the surgery, I don't have any concrete plans in terms of moving or in terms of flying back, or I don't have any dates set for this. I don't have any date set for, I'm going to come back to streaming at this time, at this date, I'm going to have this schedule. No, when I come back to streaming, the last thing I'm going to have is a schedule, because I don't know how my day-to-day is going to be. I can't give you guys those answers, so I'm just being as blunt and brutally honest as possible. And hopefully you guys can respect that and understand, but I've tried to cover as much as I can in as quick a time window as I can. This is multiple takes that I've done of this video now, and I think this is probably going to be the take I'm going to go with. But for those of you who want to ask me questions or comments or concerns, my Twitter DMs are open, @GenesisRider. You can find the link below to my Twitter. You can join my Discord server below, find my Twitch, YouTube as well below in the description of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have gotten to the end of this, I really, really appreciate that. Hopefully that gives you some context for what I was dealing with, at the end of 2022 and up till now. This is July 1st of 2023. We'll have the surgery, of course, in 6 days here. So thank you guys for watching. I hope to get back to gaming and streaming whenever I can and I'm able to. And thank you for the support and the well wishes. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you guys. And I hope to be getting back as soon as I possibly can. Appreciate it. I'm going to end the video now.